Hello everyone, and welcome to this AQR webinar entitled Why We Can, Why We Must, Ask Why. I'm Ken Parker, Chair of the AQR, and I'm delighted to have Roy Langmead sitting next to me, because Roy is one of the most esteemed qualitative researchers in our profession today. The subject is why, one of the most controversial issues facing us these days. As qualitative researchers, we could say it's our reason for being. We're expected to answer why, but should we ask it? Some say yes, others no. Roy has very strong views on this, and as the title says, why we can, why we must, ask why. Thank you, Roy, and over to you.
Thanks, Ken. Hi, I'm Roy, and I've chosen to talk to you today about the importance of why. This is my first webinar, and I'll do my best to get through it in a clear and distinct way. Let's cut to the chase. What is why, and why does it matter? Most of you will be familiar with this issue and the criticisms of asking why in recent times. I aim to provide answers and suggestions together with my evidence and reasoning. At its simplest, why is the question we ask when we want to understand. Why did you come to participate in the webinar today? You'll have an answer. You could almost certainly find more than one answer. You may have a simple reason why, or more complex ones. It might be a casual or a more purposeful aim that you had. You may find that the answer expands as you allow your mind to play with it. This is important. Many times the answer to why emerges as we reflect and work with the question. If you have a tight topic guide and 8 people, you may never get to such an emerging understanding as you rush between questions and answers. So let's look at the next slide. For me, understanding, getting closer to people, entering their worlds and helping them to make sense of their choices and behavior is the gold standard of qualitative work. Why is the question that speaks to the assumption of cause and effect, a fundamental rule of nature and of science, an immutable rule of the universe. Stuff happens which causes other stuff. And working out causes and effects leads to understanding. It's how science progresses. Understanding itself leads to a better sense of what matters and how it matters to people. In line with our vision of being the experts in translating what matters to people to what matters to organizations. And that's the vision for qualitative research generated on the recent AQR Vision Day that you'll be hearing about. Those who say we shouldn't ask why make some good points, but they often have another agenda. They might prefer you to use another method that they have a vested interest in. Things like eye tracking, fMRI, EEG, brand tracking, segmentation. Those who say we shouldn't ask why, often, as I say, have another theory or technique that they prefer. But theories are subject to fashion. They're the clothes we wear in our heads. And everybody knows how nice it is to have some new clothes. Currently, in my field, process psychologies are more popular than interpretive psychologies, and high-tech more popular than high-touch. So behavioral economics, NLP, and psychology of flow, all of these are process psychologies, whereas psychodynamics, the role of the unconscious, transactional analysis, and humanistic psychologies are much more interpretive. Whatever technique you use, the answer to why is always debatable. That's because each of us lives in both the objective and subjective world at the same time. It's our job to find out how the 3 worlds, physical, social, and inner worlds, work together. And that requires some subtlety, because they all appear to be at work at the same time. Objective and subjective work together. It's our job, and qualitative research can do this better than any other technique, to lay out these interreactions between objective, subjective worlds and to map them. This has led me to the core principle of my work. No perception, belief, or attitude arises without a precedent or passes without leaving a trace. There is always a trail to be uncovered to explain how any phenomenon occurred. It's our job to investigate in a manner that follows these trails to their source. And for our client's sake, put simply, we ask why to develop explanations. These explanations increase our client's choices and his or her influence. They may have real value, if not absolutely right and the final answer. Passing on, you can't always get the best answers by asking why directly. Indeed, our clients may have become convinced, and we have a part to play here, that the important question is not why, but which. So they may have prepared a whole bunch of stimulus material and ask you to find out which is best. This is the style of much modern qualitative work, which I call evaluation. Even so, on these projects, inevitably the question why hangs in the air over the results. So even if we are asking which, the sense of why will not be far away. So let's return to the issue. You can't always get the best answers by a direct approach, by asking why directly. The first thing to say is that this is not a qualitative research issue. In any inquiry, in any conversation, you might have to find a diplomatic, indirect, context-appropriate way of talking or asking about something to help your opposite number to find an authentic answer, especially if the area of inquiry is of low significance in people's daily lives, or their thoughts and feelings are complex. So how does asking why, or why does asking why go wrong? Here are the main issues and current criticisms of why. First, that people don't know the reason why. Second, that they can't say the reason. Third, that they won't say, that they may wish to hide their reasons from market researchers. And fourth is a cultural issue, that in polite British society, why seems intrusive, interrogative, impolite, even accusatory. Why did you say that? The first two, don't know and can't say, are central concerns of the behavioral economists, who point out that much choice and motivation occurs outside of awareness in ways that must be explained. Also that people get biased or primed to make choices without being aware of what's influencing them. To test these effects, behavioral economics uses experiments to see how people react under different influences. We can do those sorts of experiments too. The third issue, people disguising or hiding their reasons, is ever present and usually ignored by market researchers. But there are lots of reasons why people wouldn't want to show you their inner worlds. Our inner worlds are often chaotic, disorganized, and full of less than noble motives and drivers. So often we don't want to reveal the true nature. The fourth is simply something you need to take into account and find workarounds for. This issue is one of cultural context and levels of relationship. The social constructionists have a lot to say about this, and you can look at Vivian Burr's excellent introduction to that field. So, given that we need to understand cause and effect, and that there are distorting or biasing influences, how can we get better with why? I hope this is the bit you've been waiting for, my answers. First, before you turn off thinking that I'm going to recommend years of study of psychology or years of therapy, my first recommendation is much more simple. Here it is. Watch more reality TV. What happens on reality TV? In a nutshell, people who are not very good at something become very good at it in a very short period of time. I'm thinking here particularly of skill shows. These are the biggest audience shows like X Factor, Strictly Come Dancing, Bake Off or MasterChef. Millions of us watch these shows. And the underlying principle is one that you can use to improve the value, authenticity and usefulness of your research leading to understanding. What is that principle? It's purposeful practice. The people who take part in those shows are coached and encouraged to become better at the various things, tasks that they're undertaking. we can coach and practice our respondents in finding better answers to why, so that they get better at asking and answering. It's a good idea even to prepare them before they come to the live research. Prime them in the invitation by letting them know the kind of questions that you'll be wanting them to tackle in the research itself, and get them practicing answering why. This starts to tackle the problem before it becomes a problem. It gives people practice in asking and answering why, and allows you to form your session around this activity. They're already engaged in it. So here's a way that I might set that up at the recruitment time. I might say, this market research is an exercise in understanding why we think, feel, and do certain things, and how this affects our choices. To help us ask why together, we'd like you to practice a bit before you come. There are 3 short tasks here, different ways of answering the question why. The first is to generate your immediate spontaneous answer. The second is to ask you to research an answer, perhaps you go online. And the third is to use your imagination to create an unusual answer. So we're hoping for 3 answers to the question why, reached by different routes. And here is the question. Why do people have middle names? You could choose another question or a question more related to your topic. And then you say, bring your answers with you. You can choose your question, and then your session is set off immediately with people thinking about and sharing and working on the topic of why. You can also prime and practice people in the sessions themselves. So you get 8 pieces of paper, screw them up and write a question, 1 question on each of them. Questions like, why did you come tonight? Why would you speak first? Why would you speak last? Why would you want to leave early, etc. You can see the list of questions that I've prepared. And you say, before we begin, since we're out to discover whys, let's practice finding them. Here are 8 questions. Pick one and give us each and give us a spontaneous answer, and one digs a bit deeper. The real point here is to resource your respondents for what you want them to do in a way that is fun and illuminating. But what you may say if they don't get the right explanation? Well, they'll certainly do better than they will without practice, and making the final interpretation is where you come in. That's what you, the researchers, are being paid for, not just reading out the topic questions and writing down the answers. There are 2 excellent books on purposeful practice, and the data are very convincing in how well it works. And those books are in the book list that you'll find at the end of the seminar. You can also ask why in different ways too. Here are different forms of the question why. Try any or all of these. What happened that led to your doing or choosing X? How did you come to choose, buy, or use X? What is your first memory of X? Thinking about other people, why do you think they use X? Please show me how you go about choosing a holiday, a brand, or a product. Try all of these. No matter how good you are or how prepared, sometimes you'll get lost in your sessions. You may be tired, rushed, intimidated by the audience or the group or the topic, or you may get distracted. My own issue is losing touch with my own awareness and becoming unsure of what to do next. So I try to work around this by checking in with myself before the research to see where I find it difficult to answer the questions that I'm planning to ask. And then I think what kind of resources or help I need to find the answers, and I make sure those resources are available to my participants. And second, many of our market research projects are about things of limited significance in people's lives, and you may need to help them to recover the significance of the product or brand or whatever. Here are the questions that I use on this slide to recover significance. You will already know a lot about projective and enabling techniques. These are great for helping people look inside themselves, find things, and use them to explore the reasons why. They're also great for finding out what embedded associations people already have for products and brand, what the system 1 of a brand is, if you like. There's an interesting idea. All brands have a System 1 heuristic in the form of the embedded associations they have. Why aren't we exploring that in every session that we do? Finally, what did we do as an industry or profession to contribute to the misleading answers in qualitative research? We played a part in creating this issue. And I think it went something like this. We assured clients we could do miracles, that quick, clever, useful work was the answer and we could do it in a week. Often the results were shallow or misleading, but we didn't admit that. We kept on chasing the money, and over the years this has led to the domination of the topic guide, where we simply ask the questions the client wants answers to. In my experience, if you ask a lot of questions, people's answers become more automatic and superficial. They get tired, a sure invitation to shift System 1 shortcuts. They're likely to feel pressured and interrogated, forced to pay something more attention than normal so they confabulate. Does our standard technique just have too many questions, too little time? We moan about the topic guide, but it fundamentally undermines our work. So here's what I recommend to you. Put people before products. Think about the help people need to further the inquiry. Give them practice at asking and answering why. Unless relationships are created that encourage and reward going beneath the surface, they'll offer simple answers and continue to confabulate. To get better at what we do, here's what I suggest. Develop your self-awareness. Anything that you're unaware of in yourself, you'll find difficult to be aware of in others. And this is particularly important if you're working outside a field of your own familiarity, something that you're unfamiliar with. Invest in a well-stocked mind that you keep up to date. At the end of this, there's a suitcase for a well-stocked mind that contains all of the books that have made the biggest difference to me in my practice. Remember that your participants have well-stocked minds too. Elicit what is already there in people, embedded brand associations, before you bombard them with new stuff. 4. Use purposeful practice to resource your respondents. As I've described. Foster personal and even intimate relationships. Use self-disclosure here and do so judiciously. Prepare your client for a variety of perspectives, that you won't follow the same route through every discussion. And commit to continuous professional development. This is a profession, not a job. And for those who like a dynamic diagram type visual to help you figure out what's going on, here is one. If you look at the builds, I suggest the kind of activity that is most likely to help you based upon the nature of the difficulty in your session. And on the subject of a well-stocked mind, here are the books that I think that you might pack into your suitcase. I hope you found this useful and interesting. Contact me if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Roy. I think that was a fantastic little webinar that we've just put together there. And Roy, I know, has put a lot of time and effort into this, so thank you very much indeed. We look forward to hearing your comments. Goodbye for now.